Okay, well, I'm Natalie, as I said before, and I'm with Home and Community Services. Um, so I would say that I'm going to talk first kind of about that shared population that we might kind of serve together. So most of the time when HCS gets an intake, if the client, our determination on what we're going to do is going to be decided by whether or not they're already receiving paid services with DDCS. So sometimes we see clients who opt to go with home and community services because occasionally they can get in and assessed and on services quicker than they can if they've applied for DDCS. Often, the referrals that'll come to us that are for DDCS clients are maybe for children, and there isn't a need for us to be involved on those types of cases. So most of our population that we serve is going to be older adults or adults that have some kind of disability. So I brought applications, which is just the Washington Connections application, and I brought the long-term care services, book care, in case anybody is interested in those. I also brought my business cards because if you have questions about an application that has been submitted or that maybe you thought should have been followed up on and has not been followed up on, I can always help you with that. Like I said earlier, we are hoping to have a new system come January where everyone in the state will call one phone number and be able to access the services that they need. So obviously we get lots of referrals from the older population. We also get quite a lot of referrals for clients who are younger and need assistance. Typically, it's their need for assistance with medication management and those types of things that gets them qualified for services. And so if you pick the phone up, you give us a call, you're going to get an intake worker on the phone. They're going to complete what we call an enhanced intake. If someone is looking for in-home services, they're going to gather a little more information because they're going to go on to that list of people to be scheduled for an assessment. Right now, assessments in this county are probably scheduled about 6 to 8 weeks out. There are other parts of the state where it's much longer, the wait time to get an assessment, but Grace Harbor County is pretty good. If a client is looking for residential services, we don't need quite as much information. So one of the first things that we're going to ask, in intake is, are you already receiving any kind of services from DSHS at all? So if they are not, that's when we're going to ask them to complete the application. And what's really important is that you don't get bogged down on getting every single thing into this application. We see that a lot, that the application gets submitted and people get really stuck because even getting online to fill that application out can be overwhelming for people who aren't the paperwork experts that we are. And so getting as much information as that client may have, assisting them with that application and making sure they sign it is the quickest way to get it processed. If you can help them fill it out online, that's going to be your best, quickest way to get it through processing. Intake is processing, so let's say you submit an application today, intake is probably going to get to that application within about 4 days. And that will then get assigned to a social worker who will make contact with the client probably within a week and get them scheduled for an assessment. But that's that assessment piece that's scheduled of 6 to 8 weeks out. You do sometimes have cancellations. One of the things that I would say if you have a client who does not have a functioning phone, or a client who lives somewhere where reception is so poor and it's hard to get someone, if you're at their home and you think that they need to apply, call us and try to do the intake with them while you're there with them. Because that seems to be where we lose people, is that someone assists them, they submit the application, and then intake goes to try to reach them on the phone. We call once, we call again the next day, and then we're sending a letter, and that's where people kind of get lost in the process. And so, particularly, or, our homeless population that we're trying to work with, it can be really difficult for us to connect with too. You can always send people to the office. There is a Home and Community Services social worker and a supervisor in the office every day. There isn't necessarily an intake worker in the office unless I happen to be the supervisor of the day. If I am, I'm more than happy to go up and meet with clients and do the complete intake. I'll assist them with the application in the office. So feel free to send people over there. If in the event that I'm not there, the day a client comes, they can certainly arrange to get someone on the phone to assist. But yeah, so, we're going to help people get the personal care that they need. So whether that's going to be, a caregiver coming to their home or, some kind of residential facility, we're going to do that as initial assessment. We're going to help them identify what they need and where they want to be. We're going to make sure that they really understand that this is their choice. We're not making the recommendation about where they're going to be or what kind of services that they need, that it's their choice and they get to be the, the driving force behind what comes next. So Home and Community does that initial assessment for clients who want those in-home services, and then typically transfer over to the Area Agency on Aging. And so they take that on from that point, and then I will let Renee talk about their process with that. When you call intake, if it's not something that if Home and Community Services is not something that you think you might be interested in or your client might be interested in, we will do our best to connect you with other community resources. We'll direct them over to AAA. We will, suggest MAC into SOA. We'll suggest the Family Caregiver Support Program. We're going to do our best to get the client what they need, even if it's not going to be our program. We do within HECLA, not within HCS, but Washington Cares is in the process of launching, which is that long-term care insurance program. There's lots and lots of questions on how that's going to shake out, but that'll be another option for people who are not eligible for Medicaid. And so I think that is sometimes the hardest piece about our process is whether or not you're going to be Medicaid eligible. And because, I'm at a different stage of my life than I was 20 years ago when I started working, I've just recently went through the Medicaid application with my mom to get her services. And I did not think she would qualify for Medicaid. And so how I got her services is that one of my workers who lives in Tacoma saw an ad for the Family Caregiver Support Program on the side of a bus. I had never heard of it, and I work for Home and Community. And so we're really we have a lot out there to meet the needs of our clients, but we don't always know about it in each individual program. So I'm really happy to be here today and kind of share that information. But, there's lots of kind of nuances about Medicaid, and we actually hired an attorney for my mom to go through the process. And at that time, I found out that there is a website that you can go to that will give you the list of attorneys within your specific county that do pro bono work for Medicaid applications for elder law type of stuff. So again, that was a new resource for me. So, yeah, we have an amazing team in Grays Harbor County. Our in-home workers are Danielle Fisher and Patience Jones, who have been working in social work in this community for a very long time, and Persida Garung, who is our newest worker, and she's fairly new to Grays Harbor, but they are all great. Residential workers are Amy Herring and Stephanie Burnham, both who are spectacular, very caring individuals. You know, a lot of us come from here. This is our community. We have lots of overlap between whatever agencies you're working with, wherever you come from previously, you're going to see people in both environments. And yeah, I am always available. I have my business card here, and if you ever have any questions, I am more than happy to help.
Does anybody want to ask questions for her yet, or?
We'll wait till you're done.
Okay. So O3A, we serve the Olympic Peninsula region. We currently cover Clallam, Jefferson, Grays Harbor, and Pacific County, and we provide services and advocacy for older adults 60 plus, adults with disabilities, and unpaid family caregivers. So when somebody calls our office, we connect them with resources. They can be transportation, nutritional programs, in-home care, respite, and case management. We also support unpaid caregivers by use of support groups and respite services. And we support and promote independence for people in the community so that they can stay home and stay home as long as they possibly can, rather than going into institutionalizations. So one of the programs that I oversee is the Family Caregiver Program. We provide services and resources and support unpaid family caregivers and also informal caregivers. We provide services to those that are 60 years and older, adults with Alzheimer's or dementia, and adults with disability. We can help with providing things like counseling, support groups, respite care, training, education. We can assist with supplies, things like medical equipment and home modifications. So one of the things that was crazy for me that I learned is that there's 800 or over 800,000 unpaid family caregivers in Washington, which is amazing. I mean, that's a lot of people taking care of their family members or their neighbors, and they're having to balance their home life, their family, caregiving, and their jobs. And it's very, very difficult. So the goal for a lot of our programs is to reduce caregiver stress and to improve caregiver well-being and to help people stay in their homes longer. Another program that I help out with is the Kinship Caregiver Support Program. It supports grandparents or other relatives who are raising children when the parent cannot. We can provide financial assistance for necessities for those people. That right now we're very busy with all the kids starting school, and so we're able to assist with, it could be school clothes, it could be school supplies, driver's ed, things like that. We also provide information and referral. We can provide support groups and training. We have a kinship navigator that helps people navigate through legal and the social services systems. So just to kind of recap on what O3A can do and how we can support individuals with developmental disabilities, we have information and assistance, which we can help navigate services and community resources. We do case management and nursing for those that are on Medicaid long-term care. For family caregiver support, we provide respite, training, counseling, other supports for the unpaid caregiver and adults with disabilities. And KCSP, which is kinship care, we provide assistance for relatives raising children with developmental disabilities. We also help out with MAC and DSOA, which provides services for people who are not on Medicaid but still need help, such as respite, meal support, or personal care. So does anybody have any questions? Yep.
How long typically does it take before a person transfers? Oops, sorry. How long typically does it take before a person transfers from Home and Community Services to Olympic Area Agency on Aging?
So, I mean, I think it kind of is dependent on each individual situation. You know, in cases where we're struggling to find a caregiver and things like that, it takes longer. The goal for an HCS worker is to have that assessment turned to current, which means finalized, and to have a caregiver in place within 30 days, at which time we would start working on transferring that over to O3A. So,
We also have, with the MAC to SOA program, we have what's called seamless transition. And oftentimes, somebody will go on to MAC or to SOA because they have money in the bank or they have more money, resources available, and then oftentimes it's not enough help, so they need to transfer over to long-term care. And we do what's called seamless transition, which allows them to continue to receive the services that they're getting under MAC to SOA with no break, and then going over to the Medicaid program.
so one thing that I can add that's probably a little bit underutilized because it's a fairly new program is that Home and Community Services does have a program called presumptive eligibility. And at this time, that is only open up to select clients in Region 3. So what presumptive eligibility does is it qualifies the client to begin to receive services after a brief phone screening with them while they're waiting for an assessment so that they can start to do that. So my team does those initial screenings. Right now, you have to have been hospitalized and discharged, like actually admitted, not just an emergency room stay, in order to qualify for presumptive eligibility. Region 1, so Eastern Washington, is providing presumptive eligibility for any client that is looking for in-home services. So the hope is that there will be a way when we restructure beginning in January that we can hopefully start expanding that service to make more people eligible for that resource. I mean, it's a big difference if you can get services started within a week instead of services started within 2 to 3 months. So that's a program I think that is really going to be helpful for some of our hard-to-serve clients. The hard part about that is you have to be wanting in-home care to qualify for presumptive eligibility. So, you know, if you're wanting to go to an adult family home or something like that, you don't qualify. And you have to have some kind of stable living situation. So if you are living in a travel trailer, that disqualifies you from presumptive eligibility. You have to have some kind of stable home where a caregiver could go in and provide services. But even, you know, getting approved for that presumptive eligibility, you know, we can make referrals for them to get a PERS unit so that they have that assistance if they fall. You know, so there's those things that can be accessed immediately. We make a lot of referrals to Meals on Wheels and different nutrition programs. So, I mean, that is a resource that's there if we can manage to get them qualified. So we're looking at trying to kind of expand our initial conversations with people to include questions about previous hospitalizations and things like that.
We also have presumptive eligibility with the program MAC into SOA, and we don't have as many rules and things that need to happen to qualify for presumptive eligibility. Everybody that applies for tailored support for older adults starts out presumptive eligibility, and they're able to get those services before a financial worker has approved them. So we also have that, and it's great because we can get people the services right away.
So I have a question about if a family finds out that they have a loved one that they know has a disability, but they don't know if that disability is at the level to where they would be able to get developmental disabilities community services, would it be wise that they come to home and community services, and then if you, in the intake, you decide where they might be best to go and you lean them to that way?
Yeah, and so that's the hope with this with our intake program centralizing, is that when someone calls in, theoretically, we don't really know how this is going to work yet, but theoretically, they should be able to have a conversation with that intake worker about if they need home and community services, if TSOA might be more appropriate, if they might qualify for presumptive eligibility, and then hopefully they will immediately be connected with that person who is available to help them make those determinations. Or maybe the person who answers that call can do it all right now. I supervise presumptive eligibility, and my co-supervisor supervises the MAC and TSOA program, but my two people, one of the workers for MAC and TSOA has been out on maternity leave. So my two presumptive eligibility workers have been trained in how to do the initial MAC and TSOA stuff, as well as the two workers that we have for that program. And so it's been really, really helpful and efficient for people when they get connected with one of them, and then the client says, no, I don't want to pay a participation fee. I'm not interested in having presumptive eligibility or long-term care through the state. They can immediately roll that into the conversation about TSOA and complete that and get it transferred right over quickly. So, yeah, that's been really helpful.
I wanted to mention too, with Medicaid alternative care and tailored support for older adults, there is no participation. So you'll never pay anything for that program, and there is no estate recovery. So oftentimes people will kind of go that route because they're wanting to steer clear of estate recovery, that kind of thing, or they go that route because they have money in the bank. They're able to hold on to their money a little bit longer. They're able to stay in their home maybe a little bit longer before they transition over to Medicaid.
Well, and I'm just going to speak from personal experience here. We got my mom on the Family Caregiver Support Program, where she qualifies for 32 hours a month of caregiving services. We did our Medicaid application. We had our assessment. She qualified for services, but her participation fee is over $2,600 a month for in-home care. So she would qualify for 69 hours, which is, a little more than double the amount of hours, but the cost of 69 hours a month is like $2,900, and her participation fee would be $2,600. That doesn't make sense. They own their own home. My stepdad would be in, really rough shape without that $2,600 a month if my mom paid that participation fee. So we opted out and we withdrew our application for Medicaid, and we're going to stay with the Family Caregiver Support. And I will say that when the worker came over to do my mom's assessment for the Family Caregiver Support Program, he also happened to be the kinship care person, and was able to get them some additional assistance because they are the legal guardians of my nephew. And so he's transitioning to my care, but he's still with them the majority of the time right now. So it's really nice when you have that connection and can kind of learn about, someone coming to your home can give you more help than you anticipate is amazing.
So the other thing that I have run into is families have been really great about taking care of their loved ones with disabilities without state support. And so then mom and dad pass away, and the person has no support, and they don't qualify for developmental disabilities community services because they don't have a documented disability before the age of 18. So those people that are calling our places, we should be recommending that they come to Home and Community Services so that they can help connect them up with those
Yeah.
services.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So a question I have gotten asked multiple times, and can you speak on whether or not the services that you guys provide offer employment supports?
It's not something that's typical for us. We would somehow connect them to another community resource. But again, I mean, I feel like that meetings like this are so helpful because we can make some of those kinds of connections and learn about other things that may help our clients, or mutual clients.